Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Shopify podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Elster, and we are recording from my car, on the road, in motion, doing a whole 10 miles an hour in a parking garage. But yeah, I want to do something different, and I want to do simultaneously release this episode as both an audio episode and video on YouTube. Should, kind of cool. It should be fun. And I got my dude here, Andy Bedell. You've heard him on the podcast before. He is one of the most brilliant Facebook marketers in existence at the moment. What's like the biggest budgets you've managed, Andy?
I'm trying to think what over $75,000 a day.
$75,000 a day. I can't even conceive of budgets that crazy.
It's Christmas, baby.
But so I'm thrilled to have Andy with us. And he is going to talk us through internationalization. He has helped multiple stores that we have worked on together, so I'm familiar with the rabid success he's getting. Has helped them internationalize. They were all North American, U.S. businesses that sold internationally in the most surprising of places and did incredibly well. And I've seen some of our own clients go international, where we just replicated the same thing they were doing in the U.S. and boom, so it worked. It will work in the U.K. and make money, and oftentimes the return on ad spend's way better. So I'm not an expert at it, though. I just know the tremendous potential, and I know for a lot of businesses, like, this could be an easy growth path, especially with new tools coming from Shopify that were announced at Unite, and there's no time like the present to explore this. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Give me that hand. Yeah. All right, Mr. Bedell. So, all right, number one, tell me why should we care or worry about or even think about internationalization?
All right, well, I'll go back to when I first internationalized. The reason really why I kind of stumbled upon this was we were, running ads in the U.S. and having just tremendous success. This is back in 2015. Video views. You couldn't even run a video on website conversions yet. It was just on through video views, and man, it was just going bonkers. But eventually, just like any other campaign, you start running into ad fatigue, and really one of the best ways to scale is to go internationally. Now, not every product can go international. We'll kind of cover that later. But so what happened for us was we were just kind of running into ad fatigue, and I was talking to my Facebook account manager, and they're saying, "Well, you're only advertising in the U.S. We have the rest of the world available." So I was like kind of skeptical, but I was like, I don't really, I made sure that we could ship there, and our shipping costs weren't too large because we had a kind of a small product. And so I started turning on ads in, English-speaking countries like the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Ireland, and started just seeing success everywhere. And then after that, I started just going down the list of just, top GDP per capita countries, and was really just, it really just allowed us to really, really get past ad fatigue, so we weren't running into bad months because the spend, the ROAS was becoming unprofitable in the U.S. So we were able to basically scale all over the world, which drastically increased our revenues. And on top of that, it really just gave us some time to rest in the U.S. so that our ad spend was more effective several months later. So
early on, we're talking about KeySmart, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And we're okay to say that?
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about KeySmart, fabulous product, inexpensive product, and you had managed to scale, or revise scale with your Facebook ads to a point that you had spent so much and narrowed down and perfected that message so well, you literally ran out of people on Facebook to sell to.
For the time, yeah. You were just, I think everybody runs into this. It's just, Do
they?
Well,
no. People who spend how much?
Well, at the time I wasn't up to $75,000, but we were getting up to probably like $4,000 or $5,000 a day, and it was months going. And so we wanted to have a good return on ad spend too. At the time we wanted to have like a 3-to-1 return on ad spend. And so you just start to run into ad fatigue. People have seen your ad. I think we've covered this before, but after you see an ad, when you start seeing an ad, you get a lot of shares, you get a lot of likes if it's a good ad, and you can get a lot of organic reach that way.
Yep.
But how many times are you going to share? If there's anybody in the crowd, just think about it. How many times have you shared a post twice? never, right? You know what I mean? It's like, well, why does the person keep, unless you're like a scammer, you just keep sharing your own stuff. But yeah, you would never, continually share or like things. So you start losing that engagement, and then Facebook actually starts, charging you more because you're getting less engagement, so your CPMs go higher. And it's just a bad experience for, Facebook users and everything all around. And so basically you'll start to run into ad fatigue, and you'll start to get, horrible return on ad spend. But the truth is if you can let it rest for 2 or 3 months, or, for a unspecified time period, it usually comes back, right? So that's where international ads come into play, is that, you give it a little bit of a rest, but on top of that, you open up the world. And, if you look at the stats, Shopify just did a whole piece on internationalization. If you look at the stats, about 13% of e-commerce is happening in the United States right now. So that means
43 cents of every dollar in the U.S. is spent on Amazon.
Yep.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
But like that figure sounds scary. Where like, man, only half is going to Amazon, half's going to the rest of us. But in the rest of the world, this is not the case.
Yep.
And we only represent about 1 in 10 of every dollar spent in the world on e-commerce.
Yep.
So there's this massive marketplace outside the U.S., and the majority of dollars for Facebook ads are spent in the U.S. So really, you have, when you look at the world as this, holistically, this system, you realize, oh my gosh, there's all this other uncaptured value, and it's going to be easier to reach people.
Yep. No, it's 100%. Yeah, it's you're just basically, just think about it. You're just leaving the majority of the world untouched. So and there's we'll get into the intricacies, but really, so I'd like to start with let's move into like, how do I know if my product is suitable for internationalization?
How do I know if? So all right, so I want to go international either because I've got ad fatigue, or it's just an easy. It could be a quick, easy channel for growth, given like a scaled approach, an iterative approach. But you're right. So then the next thing I need to ask myself is, am I a good fit for internationalization?
Yep. I think that the really the biggest thing is, the biggest barrier you're going to have is getting your shipping set up. So if you're like a 3PL, you need to make sure that your 3PL actually does international shipping, and you should be kind of negotiating with them on those rates so they're not giving you like, I've seen people come back and they're like $15 to go to the UK, and you're like, well, at that rate, that's pretty expensive. So a big question.
Hold up. So number one, look at my existing shipping solution and find out, can they ship internationally? Where can they ship to? And that has its own issues in that you got to deal, like, international shipping has its, like, you got to fill out the declaration, and it's a big pain. But if should I jump straight to, I send a pallet of my stuff to a warehouse in the UK?
No, you shouldn't be, just because that will separate your inventory, and then you'll have a bunch of, you need to, to start, we should be on your MVP, your minimum viable product,
Okay.
And you might even be able to say like, oh, you need, these shipping costs are expensive, but eventually I can ship a pallet and then ship cheaper, and so it might even make sense to test, knowing that you might lose money on these shipping, but that just to validate your your hypothesis that international is a big market,
before investing in setting up a 3PL in another country.
Yeah, and that gets difficult for tax reasons as well, because then you have a tax nexus, and you might have to set up, you'll have to be accepting VAT, you'll have to be, that part I couldn't help you with. So you kind of have to contact a tax lawyer to help you with that. But so just simply, the simplest way is really to start in the U.S., shipping out of the U.S., find a 3PL who can ship. Most of them can ship internationally. I know like Shipmonk ships internationally. They're supposed to have pretty decent rates. I know for another store I work with, they use Shipmonk, and that's worked out. If you have your own warehouse, I recommend contacting Ascendia Mail. We use them. I think they're part owned by the Swiss Post, and so they basically have really good rates internationally.
We've had, I've seen consistently our clients have had the best experience international shipping using DHL. Just if you're either if you're doing your own fulfillment, and there's still people picking and packing, or they have their own warehouse, DHL is the easy way out for doing international.
And we actually, I think we got cheaper, when we were smaller, I think we got cheaper negotiated rates through a company called First Mile, and they used DHL. So it was basically like they were just, they had economies of scale, and they were able to offer us a cheaper DHL rate. It was
Right.
that's pretty much. We also use use UPS Mail Innovations for the U.S., and they just basically they give us a cheaper rate than the USPS, but they just use the USPS. They basically just take it to the last mile. So anyway, so shipping is really the big. Make sure that you can ship. Like that's going to be your biggest problem. But once you can get a shipping rate, and the other thing to think about is your product big? We were just talking about a client that you work with together. We were somewhat together with was our client I referred you to was Fuego Grills.
Fuego Grills, FuegoLiving.com.
Yeah, and so they're
the iPod of grills.
Yeah, they have a really nice grill. I recommend you check them out. But you can imagine sending a grill from the U.S. to the UK is going to be just prohibitively expensive just because it's so heavy. So just a rule of thumb to think is like, if this product is really, really heavy, internationalization might not be the best fit for me.
Ideally, under a pound.
Yeah.
And smaller, that will keep you in the cheapest class of mail.
Or if you're working with if you're a T-shirt seller and you're working with Custom Cat or something like that, I think they have you can internationalize through that.
All right, so keeping you on track here. The original question was, how do I know if my product's a good fit for internationalization?
So number
one is, can I ship the damn thing?
Yeah, and that has to do a lot to do with if it's small. Number two, so just the size and weight, getting just negotiating it, the ship rate. Number two would be technological or cultural fit. So we talked about.
I'd say 2 and 3. Number two would be technological fit.
Yeah.
3 cultural.
So number 2, technological fit. Our friend Peter Fries from SEO Shower, he has this snap-on thing that connects to your shower. It works.
It was aromatherapy device.
Yeah,
he's been a past guest.
Yep.
Had great success.
Turn your shower into a spa. It's a really nice product. Unfortunately for him, when he started to try and internationalize, he realized that the shower heads are different in Europe, and it just didn't fit. So that's just not going to work. Now you could probably test into that, just start running ads and just get complaints, or you could, you know what I mean. That's one way. It's probably cheaper, honestly, to do that than to fly out to Europe and test it out.
That's true. I mean, it's like, all right, worst case scenario. Sorry about that. We'll refund you.
Yeah.
And lesson learned.
So yeah, you lesson learned. Stop the internationalization. He actually did that, and now he's re-engineered his product, and now it works on European shower heads. So if you want to buy one, go to his website. But anyways, then the next thing would be cultural fit. So if you're a T-shirt seller and you have really cultural, if you have stuff sayings that are really popular in the U.S. but not popular elsewhere, you just might not have a good cultural fit with your store.
Like your collection of Dab Cat sweatshirts, that works here. Yeah. I don't know that works in other parts of the world.
Or the Seinfeld analogy, where it's Seinfeld was really popular in the U.S. but not as popular as some shows like The Simpsons were internationally, because all of the jokes were really, really contextual around New York and being an American kind of. So if you wrote had a shirt that said yada yada yada, and you're trying to sell it out in Europe, it just might not be that very effective.
Whereas Married with Children, hugely popular in Russia and parts of Eastern Europe. Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
So it's you're married with children, leggings may be a good seller.
Putin loves Putin loves Married with Children, right?
Yes, it's his favorite.
He's on a horse and he watches on his iPad or something like that. But yeah, so those are the 3 things. It's can we ship it? Is it technologically? Does it work? And does it culturally work? And honestly, if you can get the shipping part down, you could possibly also just run the ads to figure out the other 2, because it might be difficult for you to really figure those things out. But those are just things to think about.
Okay, so we've got, if we could either just go for it, or you try to figure it out, and really I think it's just a case of common sense.
Mm-hmm.
So once I decide to start selling internationally, I need the store. Next step is my tools. I need the store to support it. And for the store to support it, I need their native currency. And we'll skip language for now, because there's a whole slew of English-speaking countries I could sell to, including, we don't think about it as international in the U.S., but Canada. Clearly, they're English-speaking, they're culturally, the overlap is 99.9% with the U.S. They have poutine and a different currency, but it's international.
And that's where Shopify's located.
And yes.
So they do have e-commerce there. We know that much.
Beautiful Ottawa. It's a great city. Ottawa.
Yeah.
All right.
So what was the question there?
I was rambling. No, all right. Next step is we need the store. We need our tools in place to sell internationally.
So
next up is
currency. So the
well, number 1, do I keep my store? Do I have one storefront or multiple storefronts? And how do I deal? What are the problems with currency?
Okay, so first off, I would just keep your own store, especially if you're not gonna translate the site to start. I would just keep your own storefront, and then I would just download. So if people land on your webpage and it's not in the right currency, I think you're gonna drastically increase your bounce rate. I can't remember what the stat is, but like 75% of people want to see it in their own currency, or else they won't shop there or something like that. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that, but it sounds good.
I'm gonna go with 80%.
Yeah. So it's I could like look at my phone, but that wouldn't be the best user experience for you guys right now. So basically, if it's not in currency, you're gonna find that you're gonna have a huge drop off. Now we were actually running ads out of currency, like so people would just come to the U.S. It would drop it on our store, and they would just be in U.S. currency, and it was actually still decently effective. But once we switched over, so it was all in currency, the conversions went way up. So if you start out with just U.S., you're going to basically just be leaving a lot of money on the table. And it's going to be a lot of like wasted ad spend. So I'd recommend just downloading the free Bold multi-currency app, and that'll just make it so that whenever somebody lands on your website, they'll be in currency.
Now,
yep.
Most themes are going to support a currency converter out of the box.
Yep.
But it is better than nothing. But they're limited in that when someone lands on the site, it's always going to default to your native, whatever the store's native currency is.
Yep.
The Bold solution or other like app or custom solutions are going to use IP geolocation so that they could figure out, oh, this person is in this country, and then automatically set the correct currency. Like if they have to set the currency themselves, you're still going to run into that bounce rate issue.
Yep. Now that's
the thing to look for.
Well, just think if you're in America and you landed on a page that was in like the ruble, like the Russian currency, you would automatically be like, this isn't right for me. And while the truth is that foreign shoppers are more used to running into American dollars than you would be in running into foreign currencies, they still have the same feeling. They want to shop in currency. And so these plugins will convert your currency so that it looks right, but then when they're going to go check out, they will, it'll tell them, there'll be a little message that says, oh, you're going to check out in USD, but it's going to cost you this much in your own currency. Right. So that's really the first step. You want to have that done. It can work without it, but it's very simple. Just a couple clicks to download the Bold multi-currency app, and then everybody.
And it's free. That's one of their free apps.
And it's free. So we'll get you into their ecosystem, and you start getting emails, and before you know it, you'll be.
So they could run that remarketing thing.
Yeah. Before you know it, you'll be in the Bold ecosystem. But no, we use that. That's a really nice app. We originally had Kirk custom code a solution for us where we were putting a UTM tags, and it was kind of complicated, but the Bold system has really allowed us to just simplify our workflow. So I recommend Bold. Once you have that set up, then I recommend that you just literally just copy your ads that you have in the U.S. Take your best performing ad and just run it set up a new ad set, and you can literally combine all the countries into one, so you have one big ad group, and then just do Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK, and Ireland, and those are all English-speaking countries that are all relatively wealthy countries. That are all good for e-commerce. And so once you can get that's really your MVP. You start seeing some success there, and now you start to think about maybe a full-scale international, or maybe the next step in internationalization.
Hold on, we skipped a step.
Yep.
If I'm running this on one store, I'm using a good currency converter. What happens when they hit checkout?
Well, Languify will keep the currency. Well, okay. So when they hit checkout, so for the currency. Once they hit the checkout, it will pop up and tell them that they're going to actually shop in the U.S. This is the currency conversion of what's going to charge them in their own currency, but it's actually going to charge them in USD instead.
It did. There are new features rolling out announced at Unite.
Yep.
And the way it's going to work, which is super cool, is number one, native currency conversion supported by Shopify. Hooray! A long requested feature. And in that, when people hit the checkout in the past, even if you had a currency converter, it would default to just the store's native currency, so probably US dollar in this instance. That's not going to be the case anymore. It will switch to the correct currency in Shopify, bill them in their native currency, so they're not getting hit with. There's international fees. Yeah, there's international fees, so that'll go away for customers, which is great, and it's also going to change the payment providers. This is the craziest thing.
Yep.
We just assume in the U.S., well, credit card is how you pay for stuff online. In other parts of the world, not the default at all.
Nope.
Like in Germany, you pay by ACH,
Yep.
which would just be ridiculous in the US. But in Germany, that's the default. You pay with ACH. This updated, as long as you're on Shopify Payments, you could do this. The updated version of Shopify Payments is also going to automatically switch to the preferred default payment provider in whatever country that customer is in. And then you as the merchant to enable this, it's one check to enable it, you just turn it on, and then the orders and the payouts happen just as they normally would. You don't have to think about it, worry about it, so it takes care of the problem on both ends.
It's pretty awesome too.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to roll out for Shopify Plus, right? I was talking to some of the Shopify Plus people this week at the.
I believe, yeah, I think it's Shopify Plus gets first crack at it.
Yep, and it's going to be.
And then it will be rolled out to everyone later.
Yep, and so that's going to be pretty sweet for. It's definitely going to increase conversions because I know a lot of we see lower conversion rates in other countries, and a lot of it has to do with not accepting the right payment provider. I know that in Europe, for example, people really want to be paying with euros. Even if you can drop them in, and you're going to have a little bit of drop off when people realize that they're going to have to pay in US dollars. So that's going to be really exciting, and also that is a really big tell to where Shopify thinks the value is of internationalization. That they only have enough. You only have enough bandwidth to focus on a few different features, and this was a huge part of Unite. And the biggest Shopify stores are all, internationalizing. Like I listened to the podcast with the pop sockets guy on, and sold 35 million of those pop socket things in your phone. And they were
what's a pop socket?
You don't know what the pop socket thing on your phone where you pop it out like that?
Oh, and then you hold it?
Yeah, they're huge internationally. You know what I mean?
I did not realize that was a brand name.
Yeah, pop sockets is huge. The guy.
I thought
crazy.
The big one was loopy cases.
No, pop sockets are the one. They've sold over 35 million pop sockets.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they're licensed to everything. Huh. But for them, I know internationalization. I was listening to their podcast. Internationalization has been a huge driver of their success. So I'm sure Shopify can just see, oh wow, all the biggest players are going all over the world.
All right. So at this point, I'm sold on the idea. I know my product. I'm either going to gamble and see if it works, or I know my product will work in a different country. I've enabled a currency converter with geolocation. Maybe I've got this new Shopify feature rolled out, so I've got the currency straight through. I'm now set to sell in English-speaking countries. So we're going to start with the UK, because it's very, we'll do UK and Canada, why not? Now I need to get those people to my store, so I'm marketing all over again. What do I do? You said take your best performing ad and run it, your best performing Facebook ad, and you just change the targeting to that country? And
I would just change. I mean, so it depends on how niche your product is, but I've talked to a lot of people and I've done this before, and just switched over and done open targeting. So basically duplicate my best performing ad, change the ad set so it's going to those countries, so Australia, UK, New Zealand, Ireland, and Canada, because they're all English speaking. And then honestly, I've set up just open targeting before, because your lookalikes aren't going to transfer over as well because you don't have any of those customers in those countries yet.
Okay.
So if you don't have a customer base in that country yet, you don't have a big audience to make a lookalike out of. You're basically making a US lookalike audience and then trying to convert it over to
I see that's not going to work quite
it's not as effective, because people in London or people in the UK are different than people in Australia and different than the US, so the lookalike audiences aren't going to be as effective to start.
Let's dive in. You're a Facebook wizard. For effective lookalike audiences and effective automatic targeting with Facebook, how big does my lookalike audience need to be? What does my lookalike audience data need to be? And what kind of budget and conversions do I need for all of this to be effective?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, and
I think 4 questions.
Yeah. I think $1,000 is, or 1,000 people is definitely a good amount of people that you can.
So my lookalike audience, 1,000 matched emails.
1,000 matched, or even just 1,000 converted. You maybe match 60%, so match 600 or so.
Okay. And do I just export just my most recent customers?
I think you're getting your best performance when you actually tag them through the Facebook pixel and you do purchases. So we've had debates about this, but I think the best way is to just use the Facebook pixel and track purchases through that rather than uploading emails, because when you use the Facebook pixel, it's tracking a lot of other information about these people, like how long they've been on the site, like which pages they've been to. Whereas when you upload just the email list, There's some things that are getting lost in there. Although they do have the lifetime value thing now, so you can upload, all your emails and like that. But the Pixel should know that anyways. So I would recommend going with the Pixel as your seed audience. And so basically, so you're starting out internet. Like, what do you need to be successful? So I would recommend like 1,000 people to get a good lookalike audience. And then for your budgets, how do you like? I usually like to set a budget of like I want to get to 50 conversions plus a day. It's not always possible, but Facebook says if you get to 50 conversions per day, that's when you're going to use their tactics the best, like their website conversion tactics are going to work the best. They've stretched that out to 50 a week just so that, because not a lot of people can't reach 50 a day. But the more conversion, the idea basically is the more conversions you're going to get going through, the less you're targeting in the front is going to matter, really. So if that's kind of weird to say, but so if you're getting more than 50 conversions a day, you can almost like have no targeting whatsoever, and Facebook will start to just find the people that are right. You're going to have the biggest data set for Facebook to go after, and they're going to be able to find the right people without any targeting. But that doesn't always work to start because you kind of need to nail things down. So to start, you usually start with like interests and other things because you don't have the people to go lookalike off. Once you start getting enough people coming in that you can actually create an effective lookalike audience, I recommend that's like 1,000 customers, and you'll turn into like 600 that you can match or so. That's a good audience for lookalike audiences. And then to set your budget, I like to set my budget. I like to look at what is my max cost per acquisition, and that really is a function of how much my margin is. So basically, if you sell a product that's $20 and it costs you $2 to make it, that means that the max cost per acquisition is $18 because you're going to make $18 in profit in that. So if you spend more than $18 to acquire each customer, then you're going to be losing money on your first sale. So I would take your max CPA, which is just your profit margin, and times that by 10 or 50, and like that would be like kind of like a good budget to work with to kind of test things out to make
This is great, man. You got answers for everything.
Yeah, I've run through it so many times.
You may have done this a few times.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you want to give it enough budget so that it's able to reach that level. Now you might say, Andy, I don't want to just throw that much budget away. Well, it's okay if you just want to say, I just want to test the waters and put $50 in. That can work too. I mean, you're not going to really reach that threshold. But if you just want to test really, really small, a lot of people recommend just having a ton of ad sets and testing really small. I would be more like, once you find something that's working, like I would say let's combine our ad sets into as big of a group as possible, and then let's try and increase our ad spends to the point where we can actually hit the 50 to 50 a day, and then we're going to start seeing. I've seen that once you start to get to like 200 or 300 a day, that you actually see your CPAs come down because Facebook is getting so much information. And if you have gigantic ad sets, like I've had ad sets that really just covered the whole country before, you're letting Facebook basically choose who to send to with all, Facebook has 280,000 variables about each person, or bits of information about each person. So they're going to be able to run.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so so you think about it, if you're sitting there trying to like go in Facebook and like set up all these things, they have 280,000 data points about all these people, and they're going to be able to run their analyses and be able to find people that you would have never thought to target.
So the trick is really to recognize and acknowledge Facebook for what it is. The lookalike tool, the ad system, is a machine learning algorithm.
Yes.
It's big data. It's artificial intelligence.
It's all the buzzwords.
Yeah, it's all the buzzwords. But basically, it's a computer that's smarter than you, and you can't outperform it, so don't try. Much like when Waze tells me you need to take this detour, every time I've ignored it, I'm in a traffic jam.
Yeah, I do.
You're not smarter than Waze. You're definitely not smarter than Facebook.
No, yeah, I ignore that thing all the time just out of laziness, because I'm like going down the highway, and it's like go here. I'm like, no, I'm just like sitting in these. Oftentimes listen to a podcast from you. I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'll just chill here.
Yeah, just the traffic jam is welcome.
And then you're like sitting there, you're like, no, it's just really horrible. But yeah, I can't remember where we were talking about. But
all right, no, you're talking about Facebook. Facebook targeting.
Oh yeah. So yeah, don't try and beat the machine. Now I will say that I have a friend that runs a really niche T-shirt company, and he does licensed T-shirts for big movies. And for him, it's like makes more sense for him to like lock down the algorithm and just go after people that like those specific movies, because he's got all these different movies. So if you have specific reasons for creative like, you have different ads, like one ad that's going after Star Wars, another one that's going after Star Trek. You know what I mean? Then it can make sense to actually just, have the one go after Star Wars fans and the other after Star Trek fans.
Right.
Rather than just letting it wide open. So, but for most products, you'd be surprised. I remember reading like who actually buys these things. I remember reading a Google Think with Google article where they said that like something like 40% of kids products are bought by people without kids, and that could be for gift giving and other reasons, or they're just weirdos, right?
I was going to say, or they're creeps.
Yeah.
No, I got a handful of toys in the office.
Yeah. I have like a little Goku thing at my desk, like from Dragon Ball Z.
I got RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop. I was a big Dragon Ball Z guy. I still want to become a Super Saiyan, but.
All right, so I've got my All right, so I want to take my best performing Facebook ad for my U.S. audience, try it in say the UK, my other English speaking country. I need to ideally use the Facebook pixel on conversions to build my lookalike audience.
And you could start it out as literally start it out as open targeting. Like just put all those ones together, all the big countries together that we mentioned, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Ireland, and just start them all in one ad set in open targeting. If that doesn't work, then start to run more stuff, try the lookalike audiences, maybe try some interest targeting, start that. But I've talked to a lot of people recently, especially more recently. I've been doing open targeting for like 2 years and had really success. I'm talking to a lot more people recently who've been saying, oh, wow, I don't even put the targeting on and it's working really well. And I'm like, yeah, because you're letting Facebook do all the work for you.
Right.
But the truth is to start out, sometimes it makes sense to kind of lock it down a little bit and give it that data points and then let it kind of go for it. It's like raising a kid, right?
It's hard without the data.
Yeah.
You gotta teach it.
You teach him, and then eventually you're like, oh, you're going off to college, you're off in the world. So
okay, so I've got that part makes sense. Now let's say it's successful. From there, is step 2 do the same thing in other countries and keep going, or is step 2 look at my most profitable international countries and look at then setting up 3PL there and just reducing costs so that these scale and work better?
In my experience, just keeping all your inventory in one spot is so much cheaper, just because you don't have to make all these predictions about where we're going to sell what, and especially with new products and stuff coming out.
Okay.
Just having it in one inventory spot is just logistically much easier to do,
especially with multiple products.
Yes, with multiple products. Now, I'd say that shipping out to I'd say the next step is really, now we've had our English-speaking countries work well, which is a really good sign. Or international English-speaking countries work well. That's a really good sign. Now let's internationalize your site. Your site, and let's get different languages on there, because all throughout Europe they speak tons of different languages. Basically, the common language in Europe is not English.
You don't say.
So you're gonna want to get into German, French, Italian, and Spanish. Those are going to be really, really effective languages for you to go throughout the European Union, and then into South America is also really good. Asia's a really good spot too, but China, I don't really know anybody that's selling American goods into China, and that's more like an Alibaba kind of China to China thing. Japan can be decent, but Japan is also a little bit difficult with duties and just so when we get into talking about translations, languages that go right to left are more difficult to like translate and get going than languages that go left to right. So like Arabic goes like right to left, so it can make some of the translations and the whole layout of your site has to change kind of, if that makes sense. So really, I think after you get the English speaking MVP to work, your next step is let's internationalize the site into French, Spanish, German, and Italian. And possibly you might want to do 2 Spanishes, one for Spanish Latin America, like Spanish Mexico, and one for Spanish Spain. And once you can get those, and you also want to translate your Facebook ads as well as your Klaviyo abandoned cart emails and your welcome emails as well, because you want to get your lifetime value up. But once we started doing that, man, our sales went really high. So it just opened up the whole world to us. And I started going down, the list of top GDP per capita countries, and just literally was hitting, I was all the way down to like Indonesia and Malaysia, and was still getting successes there. I mean, you always see this little kind of like, if you were to draw it on a graph, you see like this bump, and some of this, as you got further and further down the countries, the bump would last less and less time. But I was translating up into all the way throughout the Nordic countries. So we had we were in Finnish and all these other things. Yeah, but just getting your site translated to start, and I recommend downloading an app called Languify. There's two. We can talk about. There's two different solutions.
Langify.
Yeah, and there's two.
All right. Well, so hold up.
Yep.
We gotta. So the next. Well, what are the? Give me your top 3 countries. If I'm going to do this, and I just want Andy's top 3 countries to test.
So if you do Germany's awesome. It also somewhat depends on the product.
Right.
I mean, if you're fashion versus tech versus other things, but Germany is awesome. They have a lot of money in Germany, and if you translate in German, it's not just Germany that you can go after. It's Germany, Austria, Luxembourg. What's the other one? I think there's like maybe 2. There's like one more. I want to say 1 or 2 more. Oh, Switzerland.
I was going to suggest it, but I didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah. No, Switzerland. So like Germany, if you translate to German, those 4 countries. But like if you think about it, Luxembourg is like this really tiny little country that probably nobody really has ever heard of here, but it's really rich. Like the average per capita income is like 100,000, and they speak German and French. And if you think Switzerland, they speak German, Italian, and French. So if you translate into German, Italian, French, and Spanish, you're really knocking out all of Europe. And you'll have some countries where they speak both languages. So like for example, for like Switzerland is in like 3 of my ad sets. It's in my Italian ad set, it's in my German ad set, and it's in my French ad set. And what I do is I make sure in the ad set targeting that make sure I set it up so it's targeting just people who speak German for the German one, and just people who speak French for the French one. So Germany, so I'd say Germany is awesome. France is awesome. France is huge. I think France is actually bigger than. I think France is like the most populous country in Europe. I think.
So there's no end to the opportunity here.
Germany, and then Italy is also huge too. So
okay.
Yeah, And
the hard part then, if you ask me what scares me about internationalization, shipping a little bit, and losing stuff to shipping, but most of all is translation. That's going to be the insane hard job to be done. So I can just say it's just a lot of just juggling things, right? So when we first started translating, we saw such crazy success that it was awesome, and it was so exciting actually. But it started to become like, oh shoot, every time I change an ad now, I'm having to. I used to kind of just write copy on the go and like test and like, oh, this is working. Now you're looking at, oh wait, I actually can't change copy on the go because this is all internationalized, and I don't know French, I don't know Spanish, I don't know Italian. So then it's like, oh, I have to add another person into this, and we have to get all these translators. It basically made it so instead of thinking about how to be innovative in English and working in like the language that I know, I was really more just kind of like figuring out how do we coordinate all of this stuff. And it really did, like while we were seeing really great numbers internationally, it really did start to take an effect on our creativeness in the U.S. So it became a chore.
It became a chore, yes. It just became like, it was like the prison that you inherited. It's like, no, I'm doing so well, but now I have to do all of these other things. And so that was really what kept me up at night, is
dealing with the translations.
Dealing with the translations, yeah, and making sure that everything was up to date, and then also just like, then once everything was up to date, then like maybe like website changes and adding things and making sure that you were coordinating all of that, and I just kept thinking, like, I wish we had a service that could take care of all this. I contacted basically every service. I remember the one that was like the gold-plated one. I remember it's called TransPerfect, and I had a call with them, and it was a great solution. And they basically have, they have a system where they read everything on your site, and they know when there's changes, and they send it out to their translators. The problem was that their translators, to translate our site, they think they were going to charge us per language was like $6,500.
That doesn't seem unreasonable.
It's not too crazy, but it's like 3 times more expensive than I was able to to get.
For the budget?
Yeah. Okay. So like I was able to get it down much lower. And once you like $6,500, once you do it for 5 or 6, we were doing it 8 languages, I want to say, it was going to cost about $50,000.
Whoa.
Just to translate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need multiple languages.
Yes.
And it's an ongoing thing. Every time, new product, new page, new ad.
Yep.
I got to go back to them.
Yes. So it was, so it didn't seem like too crazy in the, I interviewed basically, I had like a ton of these calls, and they seemed like a great solution. But yeah, just the cost was like, man, this is going to be so expensive. And at an ongoing rate, it's going to be so expensive. So what I did was I built out a team of international translators, from around, for each country that I wanted to work with. So this way you get native, like very native localized. It's not just translation, it's localization and e-commerce copywriting. The example I always give is, I live in Chicago and I grew up calling a Coca-Cola a pop. Right, and so I always say, "Can I get a pop?" And when I go out to LA and I say, "Can I get a pop?" people kind of look at me and laugh. They're like, "Oh, you Midwesterner, you actually say pop." Now imagine if you wrote that into your copy, right? Like maybe your Soda Stream or something like that. Imagine you wrote that into your copy, and now you hand it off to a German translator, and they're not familiar with your dialect, and they're like pop, you know what I mean? And they give a more literal translation. You'll see that, like, where they're just like off the wall bizarre translations, and you also see that if you just use Google Translate. I
was gonna say, this sounds like Google Translate.
Yeah.
It's very literal.
Yeah, so you'll see these kind of, and then you'll start running ads, and it won't perform well, and all of a sudden you'll start getting all these comments, like laughing, like the. They know
right away what.
Yeah, well, it's mentioned like when you read copy, it has to be written like somebody, your friend, like Kurt was talking to me, right? Not some foreign robot, right? You know what I mean? Like, once you start reading and it's like broken English and stuff like that, you're like, who is this person? You know what I mean?
So for translation, I have two options that don't suck. Number one, if I'm going to only run one store, maintain a single store, I use an app like Langify.
Yep.
And the danger with Langify is it goes through and adds classes to every single element on your page. If you're not a theme developer and you don't know what that means, Langify can easily break stuff,
yes.
But it's also easily fixed.
Yeah.
So, take it with a grain of salt. But it lets you, it is probably the best technical solution to adding the translations. It's not doing the translations itself, though.
No.
You got to tell it what each element is, right?
So, so basically, once you get Langify installed, you can download a PO, what's called a .po file from there, and it's
sexy name.
Yeah, I like it. It's I'd never heard of it before. I had to download some special things to even be able to open it. But basically, once you get it open, it's just basically a two-column Excel sheet. The left column is English, and it just pulls the strings. It pulls like strings from your whole website, and the right column is the translated language.
Okay.
And so you download that, the English version, and you send it out to natural language translators. And they will do all the translations for you. Good translator will take a week or two to get it all done for you. Then you get the PO file back up. You have to connect to your you create a subdomain for your DNS. So you go if your site is www.site.com.
Oh, so this is not like a language switcher.
There is a language switcher, but it just switches. It's all hosted on a subdomain. Each different language is on a subdomain.
Okay, so I've got getkeysmart.com is my standard site.
Yeah, and de.getkeysmart.com would be your Germans, right?
Okay,
Deutschmark. So so you can choose the subdomains, but yeah, it's like so you just create a subdomain for each language you want done.
And then once I've got that, then using the spreadsheet, I got to put in my translations, and that's where I need to hire the translator.
Yeah, and honestly, Langify is not that easy to work with either. It's you just
have so many moving pieces. There's no way to do this in an elegant manner.
Yeah. So it's
all right. But the other solution, if you don't want to use Langify, is you clone your stores.
Yes.
And if you've got multiple languages, this is where Shopify Plus starts to make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because you get your core store plus 9 clone stores.
Mm-hmm.
So for Shopify Plus costs more, but you're adding in addition to all the other features, you got 10 stores right there.
Yep.
And if all 10 are the advanced plan, okay, now Shopify Plus is cheaper.
Yes.
So it makes totally makes sense there. But now I got to maintain multiple stores.
Yep.
So those are, and instead of Langify, I'm just manually updating all of the languages on each store.
Yeah.
Whereas Langify, in one store, I got a spreadsheet, so I guess in theory it's easier.
They're comparable, honestly. It's probably just a choice of if you have a good, if you have a developer that is, if you have somebody that's going to run them both, if you dedicate somebody that's going to run all your sites, that could be just as easy, I guess. We're doing Langify. At the time, Shopify Plus didn't offer all these clone stores, so I think I got 2 clone stores, and it was going to be like $200 extra a month or something like that when I first started doing this. So I'm not going to say that Langify is better than the Shopify clone stores.
It's going to depend on your situation.
Yeah, it really depends on your situation.
But those are going to be your 2 best options.
Yeah, but regardless,
single store with Langify and Bolt's geolocating currency converter, or geolocalized individual clone stores.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But regardless, even getting past the technology point, which is somewhat of a pain. The hardest part is just going to getting good translations, and that's why I wanted to say that I've created a service called TranslateMyStore.com.
What? You're plugging something on my show?
Yeah. Come to my birthday party. No, no. So I created TranslateMyStore.com to help alleviate just the problems that I talked to so many people, and they were all interested in. So many people who had larger stores who were interested in internationalization, and they were all having problems finding the right translator. They didn't know how to proof the work, and there were just problems. So I created this translation service really to help with some of the clients that I was working with, so I could scale their ads. And then I realized, this is actually a service in itself because so many people need this, and I can actually provide it for cheaper than basically anybody else can. Just because I've worked, I don't have the overhead a lot of these big companies have, as well as I've just kind of built this system of international translators. So yeah, if you're interested in translations, if you're interested in internationalize your store, you're going to no doubt need to have translations in. So you should sign up for just sign up for our beta program at TranslateMyStore.com, and we'll help.
What does your ideal client look like?
Somebody who does not a cataloger really. We could do a cataloger, but to start, we're just accepting just a couple stores because we don't want to get overrun at the start. We have a couple stores already that we're working with, but we're going to accept a couple more stores, so you can apply now. But our ideal store is probably going to be somebody who has like 50, 75 SKUs or less. I would say. Okay. If you have, and you also, if you have thousands of SKUs, we could do it. It's just you're not going to get as big of a bang of buck as somebody who's only doing a couple, somebody who has some major SKUs and is sending the majority of the traffic there.
Right.
Because it's going to cost you to translate each product, and if it's a product that you never sell, then you're just going to be translating it. Let's say if you sell 2 of them a month or 2, you're probably not going to get your return on investment.
Okay. So if I want, is this a one and done solution? Like you will tackle everything for me?
So it is a one and done solution that we will actually go in and do the translations. We will work with Languify, so you don't even have to, and we will set up your DNS. So you don't really have to. You just have to kind of give us logins, and then we'll also translate all your Facebook video ads. So I have a video editor. I can go in and basically take your captions, and basically you don't even have to do anything. We'll take your captions, we'll write them down in an Excel spreadsheet or a PO file. Actually, it won't be a PO file, but we'll write them down. We'll send them over to our translators. They'll translate those, and then we can actually edit your video so you have a live video. We can edit your copy on your Facebook ads, so you don't really have to do anything, and we can even upload it to Facebook so you can just copy that ad set or copy that ad.
So you'll implement my tools.
Yep.
You'll do the translation.
And
translate
Klaviyo.
my Facebook ads
and
videos.
Klaviyo.
And you'll do Klaviyo.
So that's the one and done kind of system. Now you're going to have changes to because you really want to have the ads going in the right language, the retargeting ads going in the right language. You want your website to be in the right language, and then you want your abandoned cart, and you want your welcome series, as well as any broadcast that you're really going to do, to be in the right language. So, but then after that, you're like, well, if I make changes to my store, if I this or that, you're going to need some ongoing service. You don't need to go ongoing service for us. You could kind of just leave it, your main page is translated, but you're probably going to want to. So we will also provide kind of an ongoing service for people. You could set it up so that you could just email us and be like, go in, because the Languify will know what parts of the site need to be retranslated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it won't be like a full retranslation, because a lot of basically it has this, like I said, it's got strings. So it's got the English string and it's got the translated string. And when we download it, the ones that don't already have a translated string are the ones that we need to translate, right? So if parts of the website that you don't change, those will just they'll just stay, and it'll just put all the new strings that we need to translate in. And so, or if you have more Facebook ads or whatever, it's going to be an ongoing thing. But just to start is really, once you start, you'll get a really good idea. And you might, if you email if you apply, it's not just like the translation part. We'll also kind of consult you on which languages to try first and kind of work with you in your budget, because you might want to say, well, let's just do Germany, let's just do German, or let's just do Italian, or let's just do French, and do kind of an MVP translation model, and that's great too, right? We could just do German, and that'll unlock 4 or 5 countries within Europe. Test that out. That works out.
I like that phrase, unlock.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like these are markets that you could conceivably do well in.
Yep.
It's low risk if your product already sells well in one country.
Yep.
Well, arguably, if you could get it translated, it's a good cultural technological fit. That's double your success, man.
Yep.
By going international.
And we didn't even talk about the fact that there's also like the kind of nefarious thing where it's like, if you're not there and somebody's watching your success in the U.S., they could easily just recreate what you're doing in Europe, and then by the time you get there, it's going to be too late, and they're already going to have the market.
They'll have first mover advantage on your product.
So yeah, do you want to be like late and not there? I mean, if your U.S. store is running really well, you need to be going international. As long as you can ship it, you need to be doing it, and you should be doing it like sooner rather than later, because you'll be surprised at how, like, whenever I've done this, it's changed the mix from like 100% U.S. to like the U.S. is like 40%, right? So you could possibly have, like, there's never been a time where the U.S. wasn't still the best country. Go USA! No, but it always becomes that, like, the combination of all the other countries, the sales end up beating the U.S. So you'd be surprised. Like, Mexico is a great country to ship. Like Latin America Mexico's the best in my opinion, but Brazil is gigantic. I was just in Brazil, and you'll be surprised. You'll see your cost per clicks in Brazil come down to like 5 cents. It's like insane. Keysmart in 2016. Keysmart was that somebody did like this thing where they showed the top Shopify stores by web traffic, and we were number 53 at the end of the year, and that was because of internationalization. Because we were getting so much traffic.
Top 100 Shopify store.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
We were. I still go by that, even though I don't think we are anymore. Or at least I know we're not anymore. We're still doing well, but I think there's been some really big players that have come into Shopify since then. So it is what it is. But yeah, so if you're not internationalizing, you're leaving so much on the table. You're also leaving a threat of a possible, somebody else just coming over and taking over your business in another place, so it's not there when you want it.
It's entirely legal for them to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, because you don't have, it is entirely. If you don't have international patents and stuff like that too, that's the whole legal side. I'm not a lawyer, so if you really want to go international, you might want to think about getting international patents. If you have some kind of technology product, you probably already do. And designs, you just get international copyrights or trademarks. I don't really know anything about that, but it's definitely something to think about. So yeah, it's definitely legal for them to just kind of take your existing business model. But again, probably think about the tax and the legal stuff, after it's working, because there's no reason to spend a bunch of money to get patents in a country that ends up not working out for you. All
right, we're back at beautiful Old Orchard Mall in Skokie, Illinois, home of Unofficial Shopify Podcast Recording HQ. So we're gonna go. We should get some Nando's for lunch.
Yeah, I'm down.
We got time before this dude's got to leave. Go record another e-commerce marketing podcast with someone else.
Yep. I'm cheating on you.
You're cheating on me. It's not fair, Andy.
Yeah.
But okay. So the takeaway is, man, if you are already successful in the U.S., internationalization without translation is a pretty easy proposition to grow your business.
Yes.
Like, there's really not a lot of reasons not to do it.
Yes.
And to at least try it. And then when you see success there, just roll that cash into spending the money on translation. And this is, like, straight up, this is e-commerce empire building.
Yep. The one thing I didn't say was that I should talk about with the cool thing that I should talk about is that when we translated all our stores, things went bonkers. And then that Christmas, Facebook reached out to us and they said that they were looking at the list of top international advertisers, and Keysmart was on the list. Where it's like Estee Lauder and these gigantic international companies, and it's like Keysmart,
Keysmart.
So they contacted me.
Purveyors of fine keychains.
Yeah. So they contacted me and they wanted to run a test of single lookalike audiences in different countries versus multi-country lookalike audiences, and they gave us $30,000, or they spent $30,000 in ad spend to run a test on our campaign, which is really cool. So Facebook knows it's a huge thing. Shopify knows it's a huge thing. If you can do it, just get on it. And feel free to sign up for translatemystore.com for a free consultation of how to start. And I'd just be happy to talk with you, even if you don't end up using the translation services. I think it you got to be doing it. So I just recommend it with so much, honestly.
And let me grab my parking spot, and we are good to go. All right, Andy, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go eat.
Let's do it.